it's so ridiculous. And again, like the example of you asking that kid how many genders there are.
Yeah.
Nobody can answer the most simple questions when it comes to the trans thing. Like the most basic one of like, why can't I identify as a horse?
Yeah.
If objective biology doesn't exist anymore.
No, I've actually been on this. I identified on International Women's Day.
You can.
Several years ago, I identified
as
a...
Dave.
Well,
I
can go better. I can go better. I identified as a...
Can I also... okay.
Well, Dave, the point I was going to make was on International Women's Day a couple of years ago, I identified on the show as a black lesbian because, frankly...
In this clip on Piers Morgan Uncensored, we have some of the most insane, woke ideas and arguments I have heard in quite some time. From identifying as a horse to the chaos in women's sports, this clip is a perfect example of how the woke ideology is completely untethered from reality. And Dave Smith is here to show that. So let's get into this clip where I'll be giving you my unfiltered take.
If self-identity is limitless, why can't I?
Exactly, Piers. And let me just, by the way, to your point of your response of like, I can identify as a horse. Yes, okay, I can. And the correct reaction to that should be for everyone else to, you're an insane person.
You're not a horse.
And you're also a person, a human being, not a horse.
Just for the record,
but anyway, and then with the whole this whole like weaponized empathy about immigration. I mean, look, Piers, I'm sure you've seen some of the most recent polls. Americans agree by super majorities that they reject the de facto open borders of the Biden administration. And so to make this political speech while the guy, which is against the politics of the guy who just got elected, and also against what has been wokeism and open borders have been rejected by super majorities of the American people. And so to make this speech in this moment was just totally inappropriate and just, I don't know, there's something about it that I find disgusting. This thing where you just hide behind like, there are people who are afraid and the trans kids are afraid. Yeah, you know what? There are other people who are afraid that these progressive maniacs are going to propagandize their children more with this gender nonsense.
Afraid? They should be terrified. Parents send their kids to school to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, not to have their kids' heads filled with there are 72 genders nonsense. This isn't education, it's indoctrination, and let's be real, the woke activists know they can't sell this ideology to adults, so they're targeting kids. Why? Because kids are impressionable. They're trying to shape the next generation into a world where basic truths are offensive. But luckily, parents are waking up and they are not having it. We've got to draw a line somewhere, and protecting kids is the first step and priority.
And I'm a little bit more concerned for those people. So we've had an election, we've had national debates about this. That stuff has been rejected again by super majorities of the American people.
It has. Ali, what are your thoughts on this? I really did think it was hit completely the wrong mark. She may feel all these things, but to just start, I mean, it seemed to me the biggest problem the Democrats had in the last 4 years, culminating in the terrible beating they got in the election, was that they kept scolding the American people. Constant scolding, culminating in Barack Obama scolding other black Americans. If you don't vote for Kamala because she's black, effectively, then you're betraying black people. It's this constant, self-righteous, high moral scolding. And they took a terrible drubbing in the election. Trump's back with a bang. And rather than be clever and move on and evolve as a party and work out how to find the next Bill Clinton or someone like it who can actually take this head on and be a proper opponent, it seemed to me they've learned nothing. You say you're a Democrat now. Did you enjoy what that bishop was saying? Or did you not think like I did, wow, have you not got the memo that people are fed up with this stuff?
Okay, let me start off by saying the slippery slope argument is not a real argument of, oh, people are going to start identifying as horses.
That's not the argument I made.
Well, I guess the argument flew way past her head. But even far past Dave Smith's point, his statement is probably the most accurate prediction I've seen. 10 years ago, if someone said we'd be debating whether men could compete in women's sports or whether a person could identify as a horse, they'd be laughed out of the room. And yet, here we are. The slippery slope isn't just real, it's a water slide and we're flying down it head first. The left hates this argument because it exposes the absurdity of their ideology. And it's very difficult to argue with logic, so they just dismiss it outright. But guess what? Dismissing reality doesn't make it go away.
The gay marriage era That is what you said. The gay marriage
No, it's
era
not.
where people
I
said
did
that people
not
were going
say
to
that.
start marrying their pets. It's ridiculous.
It's a logical. Listen, it's not, again, just to not strawman me. I'm making a logical analogy.
Yeah.
I'm not equating the two things, and I'm not saying that transgenderism will lead to people identifying as a horse. The point is to attack the logic. What's wrong with me saying I'm a horse? You now have to respect my identity as a horse. What's wrong with it is that objective reality
you're
exists.
Not a horse. Yeah,
exactly.
The point is, the point is, Ali, limitless self-identity means that anyone, anywhere can identify as whatever they like. And the reason it matters is that this goes right to the heart of the trans debate, say, in women's sport. I want trans people to have the same rights to equality and fairness as everybody else on this panel, including me, right? What I don't want is women's rights being trashed in the process. And when you allow people who are born biological male with all the advantage in terms of power and strength and speed and so on, when you allow them to simply put their hand up and say, I'm now a woman and I want to compete against women in women's sport, and then they start performing immeasurably better comparative to how they were performing against other biological men, then you realize the problem. And this is why the Democrats, one of the reasons they lost. That last ad that Trump did, Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. One of the most effective ads in modern times. There's a reason, because most people actually went, yeah, he's got a point. We're fed up with this crap. So did you, honestly, Ali, when you heard that, Bishop, did you think, great, really needed to be said, or did you slightly wince and went, we haven't got the right memo here?
No, I really respected what she said, actually, and I think she has a lot more guts than a lot of politicians do. Not many people get to sit and talk to the vice president, the president, and their families face to face like that. And so she could have easily just, put her head down and complied. And I think they needed to hear what she said, whether they wanted to or not. They clearly didn't. But I truly believe it was important for them to hear that. And it shows just how truly cruel, callous, and anti-Christian that these people actually are. Another point is that trans people have existed since the beginning of time. They will exist. They'll always exist. The Republican Party's current position is that there are only two genders and trans people don't exist.
Look, nobody is denying that trans people exist, but the issue is this. It's being used as a blanket excuse to justify everything, from denying biological realities to destroying institutions like women's sports. Saying trans people have always existed doesn't mean we should ignore fairness, logic, or societal order. Acknowledging trans people doesn't mean you get to bulldoze over everyone else's rights. This is seriously where this woke narrative gets dangerous. It weaponizes empathy. It takes legitimate concerns such as the one made here about equality and twists them into this ideology where no one can question anything without being labeled hateful. Again, no one is saying trans people don't exist. What we are saying is that their existence doesn't negate the existence of objective reality or the need for the rules that apply to everyone equally. Empathy doesn't mean abandoning logic. It means finding solutions that work for everyone, not just for the loudest voices in the room.
Or it's made up. And that's just not true. There are a lot of transgender kids that genuinely are scared. If you haven't met one, just say that. But I have met one, I've met many, and I have transgender friends. And they are scared because there's a target on their back by this incoming administration. And I understand the Republican Party's concern about men and women's sports. That makes it sound very scary and perhaps dangerous, but I think there is a common sense solution to having inclusivity and not isolating transgender kids from their friends or sports that they want to play in high school that aren't even at the competitive level, because we simply think that they just don't belong. And there is a common sense solution.
Why can't they just compete against their biological sex like everybody else has to? I mean, let me bring in Clay Travis quickly on this, because it's a big issue, this. I just felt like, wow, here we got Miss Bishop, just didn't get the stop scolding everyone memo and just sounded ridiculous.
There you have it, folks. One of the most absurd woke ideology arguments that I've seen in quite some time. From redefining logic to wrecking women's sports, this ideology is unsustainable as it is simply ridiculous. But of course, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts as always. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. If you think these ideas are ridiculous, if you agree with them, let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.